Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because what you're about to hear today, this is not just a trade dispute. This is a global economic earthquake that just proved one thing beyond all doubt. Never bet against Donald J. Trump's America First power. So yesterday, August 1st, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney tried to play chicken with the most powerful economy in the world. And he tried to walk away from President Trump's final tariff deadline. He pulled his trade minister out of Washington and thought he could humiliate the United States on the global stage. Carney promised to take Canada's business elsewhere. He said he was going to take it to Europe, Asia, anywhere but here. And folks, within hours, his entire gamble blew up in his face. Now, if you guys appreciate the daily news updates, hit the like button and subscribe because President Donald J. Trump didn't just call his bluff. He obliterated Canada's resistance with a 35% tariff strike that rattled markets and sent shockwaves through Ottawa. Have you seen the stock market yesterday? Well, today, behind closed doors, Carney isn't talking tough anymore. He's scrambling for a new way out, begging for mercy before the Canadian economy takes a nosedive that it can't recover from. Now, if you happen to be from Canada, give me a quick shout out right now. Let me know what part of Canada you're watching from. Shout out to all my Canadian brothers and sisters. I really appreciate your support, you guys. And so this is not the only showdown that's happening this week. So while President Trump fights to protect American workers, the Federal Reserve in particular, is still sitting on its hands, ignoring all sorts of bad jobs reports, slow growth, and real families struggling under high borrowing costs. Now, President Trump says enough is enough, folks. It looks like the Fed might have finally had to kneel down to reality. So here's the big question for you today. Was Canada's defiance courage or a catastrophic mistake that Trump crushed in record time? Let me know if you stand by Mark Carney's decision or if you think Mark Carney is really kind of steering Canada toward the wrong direction. And of course, if even the Fed can't ignore him now, are we watching a new era of unshakable American power on the world stage? Guys, stick with me because what you're about to hear next, this will make you pick a side, really. It's going to make you pick a side, and it's going to change the way that you see this entire trade war forever. So August 1st, 2025 was a day that could redefine the United States-Canada relationship for years to come. In fact, in a very stunning and a very public move, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney rejected President Trump's final tariff deadline, sent his trade minister Dominic LeBlanc packing out of Washington, D.C., and stood in front of cameras saying, Canada will not bow to artificial U.S. timelines. Okay, well, that's your choice. Carney, he didn't just decline a deal. He openly challenged the most powerful economy in the world and the strongest president that America has seen in decades. I mean, he thought walking away was going to make Canada look bold, defiant, and independent. But what it really did was kind of set up a collision course that Canada was never prepared to survive. And so this is where every viewer needs to kind of pause and kind of ask themselves, was this truly an act of Canadian sovereignty, or was it more of a reckless stunt from a leader who underestimated Donald J. Trump's leverage and America's unmatched economic firepower? Because this could be devastating for Canada. And a lot of folks in Canada are like, they're mad at Carney because it's like, look, dude, America is our biggest customer. Why are you pissing them off? And why aren't we joining forces with America? I mean, they're our neighboring country. We've always looked out for each other. It's crazy. Anyway. So when a country that relies on U.S. markets for hundreds of billions of dollars every year decides to throw down a challenge like this, there's almost no going back. The stakes couldn't be any higher. American jobs, Canadian jobs, cross-border industries. Americans live in Canada, Canadians live in America. I mean, like, that's not cool, right? Anyway, the stability of entire regions, it's all on the line, all because of one political gamble between political leaders. So this wasn't just another trade negotiation falling apart. It was a direct test of whether America would be strong enough to protect its people or just let another foreign government dictate terms while U.S. workers paid the price. Well, under this president, the test got an immediate and unforgettable answer. President Trump President Trump didn't just hold a press conference to complain. He didn't, issue some vague statements or some empty threats. Instead, he acted, and he acted rather fast. Within hours of Canada's walkout, he imposed 35% tariffs on every Canadian product not already protected under the USMCA agreement. Now, this wasn't retaliation for show. This was a clear, calculated move to defend American workers who've been undercut for decades by foreign trade games and weak leadership in Washington, D.C. Now, Trump sent a message that every American could understand. No country, not even a close neighbor like China, not even a close neighbor like Canada, gets to gamble with your paycheck, your farm, your factory job, your warehouse job, just to kind of secure some political points at home. So under past administrations, a stunt like Canada's might have been met with a shrug, a drawn out negotiation, or even more concessions handed over to foreign leaders. But those days are gone. America now has a president who doesn't flinch when challenged, and he doesn't negotiate from a position of weakness. He doesn't ask for permission to defend his country's interests. He just does it, and he does it immediately. So here's where it gets real. Was Trump wrong to hit back this hard to protect American families and businesses? Or was Canada's leadership out of touch with reality, believing that they could just walk out on the United States without facing consequences? Every one of you guys watching this show right now has to make that call. So let me know what you think. But what we know for sure is this. By the end of the day, the balance of power, it was no longer in doubt. And Canada's government was left scrambling, trying to figure out what had just happened to their so-called strategy. And Canadians are worried right now. And this is like only the beginning of the story, because while Canada's leaders were still trying to spin this disastrous walkout to the press, the real fallout was already hitting their economy pretty hard. Billions of dollars in trade and tourism started slipping through their fingers, and Carney's supposed backup plan to turn to other countries, it wasn't worth the paper that it was written on. I mean, in just a second, I want to get into why Canada's grand gamble collapsed almost instantly, and why Carney is now looking for a way to get back to the negotiating table before things get even worse. And so, almost how can you blame him, right? Sharon Bertusik, she got dropped from Medicaid overnight. Medications became unaffordable. Copays were through the roof. She thought that there was no hope until she called Chapter. They found her a plan with $0 premiums, zero prescription costs, and her copay, it fell from $89 to $20. That's freaking huge, guys. Paulette Diener, she also called, and she said Chapter fixed my son's Medicare nightmare after a year of no answers. What a blessing. Can I get an amen, folks? This is why I partnered with Chapter, guys. They always fight for people who feel forgotten. Give our friends at Chapter a call right now. Phone number is down below. You should see it on the bottom of your screen. Pick up the phone right now and call them at 909-563-8279, or hit them up on their website at askchapter.org/Ron. These guys are legit. I'm telling you, there's help. Just reach out. Oh, and it's totally free. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So anyway, after leaving Washington in a dramatic walkout, Prime Minister Carney promised Canadians that everything was under control. He said Canada didn't need U.S. trade if President Trump wouldn't play by their rules. Whoa, that's a bold statement, right? So his plan B, he claimed, was to strengthen ties with Europe, Asia, Africa, and other global markets. Now, on paper, it sounded like a safety net, but in reality, it was nothing more than some political theater. Within 24 hours, cracks started showing U.S. trade accounts for over $350 billion a year. This is not something that you can just replace with a couple phone calls to Brussels or Beijing. Canada, or specifically Canadian businesses, they were suddenly facing 35% tariffs on key exports. Not good news for Canadian businesses. Manufacturing costs spiked overnight. Truckloads of goods heading toward the United States were halted or rerouted. Semi-trucks making U-turns on the middle of interstates, tourism-driven states like Florida, Nevada, Arizona reported immediate booking cancellations from Canadian travelers who were nervous about soaring costs. The ripple effect didn't just hurt Canada, it sent uncertainty rippling across both economies. Behind closed doors, Canadian officials, they were already scrambling. They were realizing that their plan B was no longer a plan at all. There were no signed trade deals with Europe or Asia waiting in the wings. This was really kind of a bluff, you know? Kind of like going into a car dealership. The car's $50,000. You're like, hey, I'll give you 35 cash. Take it or leave it. And the dealer's like, you could just go ahead and walk. That's pretty much what Canada did. No guarantees of new markets, just some vague promises that would take months or years to materialize. The supposed lifeline that Carney waved in front of cameras, it wasn't real. And now Canadian industries are bracing for billions of dollars in losses while their prime minister doubled down on pride instead of admitting defeat. Canadian Minister Mark Carney let his pride get in the way and ruined his country. So what do you call this? Like, was it a strong act of independence from Canada's leadership, or was this just a reckless gamble that used Canadian workers and Canadian businesses as pawns in a losing game of political chicken with the United States? I mean, this wasn't just a misstep. This was a collision with reality, and it left Canadian businesses, Canadian residents staggering. And so while Canada was reeling from the impact of its own choices, President Donald J. Trump stayed laser focused on his mission: protect American jobs, protect American businesses, and protect American power on the world stage. Now, this wasn't about humiliating a neighbor. This was about personal pride. In fact, it wasn't even that. It really wasn't even personal pride. This was really about ending decades of one-sided trade agreements that left U.S. workers footing the bill while other countries benefited from loopholes and weak leadership. That's all it was. And so make no mistake, other nations, they were watching. Foreign trade ministries, they saw what happened to Canada after it tried to call Trump's bluff. They saw a president who didn't fold under pressure, who didn't beg for deals, and didn't let foreign leaders dictate the terms. They saw a president that was willing to defend his nation's interests, even if it meant shaking up long-standing norms. All of a sudden, the old playbook, the stalled negotiations, push political conditions unrelated to trade, expect America to cave, all that looked dangerous all of a sudden. Countries from Europe to Asia, they started rethinking their approach overnight. So the message was unmistakable. America is done being a pushover. And if you want access to the largest, most powerful economy in the world, you're going to have to do it on fair terms, or you're going to pay the price. This is what leadership looks like. Not endless compromises, not some weak promises, not empty rhetoric, clear rules, fast action, and unwavering loyalty to the people who elected him. That's what the Trump administration delivered. And the world took notice. By the way, make sure you hit the link down below. I've left the link so you can join my breaking news newsletter so that you are notified immediately as soon as breaking news hits the wire. Click the link down below, join our breaking newsletter, totally free. You will not regret it. But while our foreign leaders were getting a masterclass in what American strength really looks like, there was another storm that was brewing right here at home. This was a storm right inside the Federal Reserve. As President Trump defended U.S. workers abroad, he was actually calling out the Fed for ignoring the pain that ordinary families are facing and feeling in this economy. Let me know if you're feeling any pain in this economy. Just type in pain if you are. And the clash that followed could change the very direction of the interest rates, the job market, your bank account in ways that we've never even seen before. Guys, it's 2025. So while the Canada showdown dominated headlines, another battle was raging right here at home. I'm talking about a battle. I'm talking about a battle that hits closer to your wallet than any trade dispute ever could. I'm just telling you. I mean, it is what it is. It's the fight over interest rates. It's the fight over inflation and whether or not Washington's unelected power brokers at the Federal Reserve are really working for the American people, or are they really working for themselves? That's the real question. Now, the latest data came in and it wasn't just bad. It was alarming. Core GDP growth, less than 1%. Job creation in July, a pitiful 73,000 new jobs. And as if that wasn't enough, the so-called strong numbers from May and June, they were quietly revised downward, revealing over 250,000 fewer jobs than Americans had been told. That's not a minor adjustment. That is 250,000 livelihoods miscounted, misplaced, and ignored. And you don't need a degree in economics to see what this means in real life. Families are fighting to keep their homes while mortgages skyrocket. Credit card interest rates, they're eaten away at every paycheck. Small businesses can't afford to hire because loans are just too expensive. AI investments and uncertainty over tariffs are already freezing hiring. Across America, it feels like the brakes have been slammed on the economy, and yet the Fed continues to act like nothing's wrong. Now, if you're sitting here watching the show and you're saying to yourself, I wish that there was a way that I could create an additional income stream for my family. I wish that there was a way to create additional flexibility so that I'm not tied to my job, so that my employer doesn't have me by the balls, because if I lose my job, it's over. I thoroughly encourage you to join our Liberty Pursuit Network, where you can learn to create your own income streams that you control. Create income based on your hobbies and your passions. Learn how to do that. Join a group of creators who are doing that today. There's a link in the description. I might even leave it in a pinned comment where you can join our Liberty Pursuit Network and learn to create an income stream that you control, and you can do that today. Hit the link, join us over in the Liberty Pursuit Network today. So Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, he had all this data before the last meeting. He knew better. Two Fed governors openly pushed for immediate rate cuts. They went against Jerome Powell. His own people went against him. They're saying that the economy needed relief now, but the majority of the Fed ignored them. They ignored the numbers. They ignored businesses telling them that a slowdown was already here. And many believe that they ignored it for one reason, for politics. It's the same reason that we saw years ago. When inflation soared under Joe Biden, Powell called it transitory, while hardworking families drained their savings. Now, under Trump presidency, the Fed seems terrified. They're terrified of acting quickly, afraid that it might look like they're bending to the White House, even when the data is screaming for action. So ask yourself this. If the Fed won't step in and protect Americans when jobs are vanishing, when growth is stalling, when everyday life gets harder, then who are they really working for? I mean, you got to ask yourself, right? Because it's sure not the single mom who's trying to buy groceries. It's not the small town factory trying to stay afloat. And it definitely ain't you or me. So who are they working for? President Trump didn't sit quietly on this one. He's not the type of person to watch Americans suffer while bureaucrats drag their feet. Yesterday, in a series of fiery Truth Social posts and private meetings, he made one thing very clear. The Fed must cut rates, and it must do it now. Not next quarter, not next year, not after another wave of job losses, but now. So Trump's goal isn't Wall Street profits. It's not political optics. It's none of that. It's about lifting the crushing weight of high borrowing costs off the backs of families and small businesses. It's about making it possible for Americans to be able to buy a home, to open up a shop, to hire workers, and to rebuild their lives after years of economic mismanagement. And the pressure is working. Analysts across the country are saying that the Fed is boxed in. Two governors already broke ranks demanding cuts. Market leaders are warning that ignoring reality could send the economy into a tailspin. Every hour, the weight on Jerome Powell's shoulders gets heavier and heavier. And every hour, Trump's message gets louder. Stop playing politics with people's lives and do your freaking jobs. This is what leadership looks like. A president who doesn't just talk about helping Americans. A president who fights tooth and nail to make sure unelected institutions like the Fed can't choke off the opportunity for millions of people. The question now is whether the Fed will cave. No, it's not even that. The question is not even whether the Fed will cave. It's really more like how soon they have to kneel to the truth that President Trump and the American people already know. The economy needs relief today, and it needs it immediately. Now, we've already seen Canada humbled on the world stage. We've already seen the Fed on the verge of being forced to act. And I would say through it all, one thing has become clearer than ever under President Donald J. Trump. The days of America being pushed around by foreign leaders or by its own institutions is over. But the real question now is, will the rest of the world learn this lesson before they make the same mistake Canada just made? Let's talk about that. So let's take a step back and just kind of look at what just happened here, right? Canada thought that they could just defy President Trump, walk away from the table, and humiliate the United States on the global stage. But within hours, that gamble blew up in their face. Their so-called Plan B turned to dust. Businesses came home. They came back home. The businesses that were back home, they're panicking. Like, Canadian businesses are freaking out. And now Mark Carney is desperately trying to crawl back to Washington to try to fix the mess he made. It's an embarrassment to Canadians, really. So meanwhile, President Donald J. Trump, he proved once again why you never bet against America. He stood tall, he fought for you, for your jobs, for your future. And he showed the entire world that under his leadership, the U.S. no longer gets pushed around. Foreign leaders bend to America now, not the other way around. And he's not even trying to take advantage of Canada. In fact, he wanted to do deals with Canada, just make them fair. Comment down below if you're a Canadian and you're like, hey, if you're thinking to yourself, I really want to hear from my Canadian brothers and sisters. If you're a Canadian, are you thinking to yourself, why is our Canadian leadership like Mark Carney not working with America? Like, why are you wondering what I'm wondering? Like, why aren't we teaming up? Why are we trying to like be competitors when we could be on the same team? I'm just wondering if anyone else is thinking what I'm thinking. Anyway. And so here at home, the Fed is finally under fire for ignoring reality and ignoring hardworking Americans. Rate cuts are no longer optional. They're inevitable. And it's because we finally have a president who refuses to let bureaucrats play politics with your life savings. So I don't know about you, but I don't want some bureaucrat playing with my money. Do you? So this week sent a message to Canada, to the Fed, and to every leader around the globe. You do not bet against the United States of America, at least not while Donald J. Trump is in charge. So where do you stand? Do you stand with a president who fights for you, or do you stand with weak leaders who sold you out for decades? There's really no middle ground anymore. And before I let you go, guys, YouTube believes that you're really going to enjoy the next video that just popped up on the screen right now. So go ahead and click that video right here, because if this story had you fired up, this one's going to blow you away. Now, I'll meet you on the other side. Do not miss it.